the biggest obstacles we face in performance and in life is self-centeredness. I just said it a few minutes ago. It's probably been a crazy past couple months, and everything happened with AJ Brown. The book went from, whatever it was on Amazon to number one, selling 200,000 plus copies a week. It's insane. How have you dealt with that in itself, that self-centeredness, with everything that's been happening the past couple months?
So the Super Bowl, I played college football, and I had a very vested interest in this game, as you know, with the Eagles.
Mhm.
And I was in New Orleans for 9 days, and I really wanted to go, but I did not want to pay for a ticket unless it was going to be face value. And so, but also more than that, I really wanted to do God's will. Inner excellence is a way of life, of getting into this rhythm, this flow where you have this peace and joy independent of circumstance. And that's what I want most. And so much of my life, I've tried to push a square peg into a round hole. And so I really work hard on getting into this vibe of connection. And so I was like, I'm not going to push it. If I don't go, I don't go. That's going to be God's will. And during the game, I felt God telling me something, and one of those things was, it's going to be important for you to make sure that you're spending a significant amount of time with people with very limited resources. Because when I first started working with celebrities and pro athletes 15 years ago, I realized quickly that I could run into the same problem that they face, which is this attachment to this lifestyle.
Mhm.
And attachment to success and all those things come with it. And it's a very slippery slope. And I thought, man, I might need the coaching more than they do. If I just get caught up in that line, be like, okay, I like this life, hang out with these guys, I want to stay with it. And then, so I realized quickly that, I'm going to need to hang out with people that are have far less resources, so I can stay centered on see the truth about life. And so it was another little reminder during the Super Bowl.
Yeah, your story has been, to understand even the book, the title in itself goes against what I think a lot of people, especially in the sports industry as well, are looking for. They're looking for external results. They're not looking for inner excellence. At least that's from what you hear often. And so, like, how do you im- talk about the importance of that to people that probably don't see it day to day?
Well, yeah, I guess it's a good question. Like, how do I get people that are like I was obsessed about success
Mhm.
to understand and pursue a little different tactic? And the way I do it is I help them understand that I help them clarify what they want most, and I help them get it. And then we start with an in-depth questionnaire, but I really want to understand how they want to feel in their life, on and off the field or the court or the ice, and how they want to live, how they want to face adversity, who they want to become, who they're meant to become. And then we kind of clarify this vision that is really empowering. And I help people understand human nature, what their heart deeply wants and their greatest fears. So we get into their subconscious mind and into their heart. And then through that, they start to understand, okay, I want really something more than just a surface level trophy.
You went into the desert, like, for got rid of most of the things that you owned and just dove deep into everything. The book really. What did you expect to get from that experience, and then what did you actually get?
Yeah, great question. So I had a screensaver on my laptop that said, "Those destined for greatness must first walk alone in the desert."
Hmm.
And for someone your age, you may not have seen a screensaver, but there are these words that go across the screen to save the screen from dying, the
Hmm.
old technology. And so I would see that over and over and over. And my pro baseball career had ended, and I just really felt like there was more to my life, and I wanted to make sure that when it came to the end of my life, that I had fully lived. And so the reason why I left for the desert was two things. One, I had a teammate in pro baseball invited me to help out with his baseball academy. He just said, "Can you come down for the weekend to help me launch it?" And so that kind of got me thinking about the desert. And then um, the reason why I felt like I had to get away and start with a clean slate is because I felt like people in my hometown were going to think of me as my past, and they were going to have limited possibilities for me, or they would try and help me to they would say, "Why would you change anything? Your life is great." And I thought that was the biggest danger I faced, this comfort that, oh, life is good, let's just keep it here.
Mm.
And so I had to get out of that comfort. I had to get out of the people that would say, um, why change anything? Life is good, because I wanted to make sure I was on the right path.
Yeah, you're a big traveler too, and I'm as well. I mean, solo travel has been really massive for me, and getting out of my comfort zone, getting around people that don't know who I used to be, that can see me as someone that I may not even see within myself. How has travel done that for you? And even as well, that experience had to have been isolating to some extent. And so, like, there's that part of it that you want to get away from the past version of yourself, but you also don't want to isolate yourself so much where I think a lot of athletes, entrepreneurs, anyone in the space that is like a type A kind of person, we can get in our head real easily. And isolation oftentimes isn't the best case scenario. So, how has travel and that experience been for you in that?
I think, well, we're created for relationships, and the greatest punishment in prison is isolation. So it shows you how important relationships are.
Yeah.
And when I think of travel abroad, especially where you're seeing things that you're not used to and you're uncomfortable and they do everything different, it's the most important kind of travel.
Hmm.
Um, I would say that's greatly influenced me. Um, Probably a third of how I've learned how to live is from international travel, which is essentially is getting comfortable being uncomfortable and letting go of my way is the best way, and trying new things, because inner excellence, the number one goal is to learn and grow, and traveling in a culture that you're not used to is one of the best ways to do that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I just got back from 2 months in South America, and every
Mm.
country I went there, I'm continuously reminded how expansive it really is, especially solo, being around case scenarios where most people live almost the same day over and over again because they never expand their environment. And so when you expand your environment, there's so much to learn from it. It is it's one of the best things I tell so many people. Solo travel has been
Yeah,
so massive for me, and Europe is next for me on that, and like Japan, all those kind of places. Southeast Asia and Europe are next for me, I would say.
come out to Spain, James.
I will. Um, there's one question that I love asking every coach or anyone in similar space that you're in. I find that a lot of people, I would guess a lot of your clients come to you saying that I'm dealing with X. And when you start working with them, those first few calls that you have or that intake form, you start to realize that what they're coming for is not what they actually need help with. I'm curious,
Mhm.
what's the thing that people come to you with, and then what are you actually helping them with?
They come to me for happiness. I help them with joy.
Mm,
In other words, they come to me for surface level. I just want to perform better. I gotta win. We got to win. We're losing. I got to get more success. That's what they come to me for. And I help them gain uh, inner strength and inner peace, and
mm.
a better life.
What is that? What's the major shift there?
Well, it's just like mental toughness. Um, the essence of mental toughness is your mindset of what you're pursuing. If you're um, if you're just trying to win, if that's all it is, it's mental toughness is very hard because so much is out of your control. But if you're sharing what you love and you just want to learn and grow, then mental toughness is far more accessible. And so it's really saying, getting back to how do I want to live my life, and how do I want to feel, and who do I want to become. I have this dream of being a superstar, but one, I don't even know if that's the best thing for me. And to what if I get injured? What if there's so many things that are out of my control that um, far more powerful is to say, look, I'm going to develop myself as a person and as an athlete, a performer, as a person first, and because that's going to get me better in everything that I do, and then we'll just take it from there, leave the rest to God.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lesson I think me and you both had to learn the hard way. I played baseball as well, and then I tore my labrum in high school. And after tearing
Mm.
my labrum, I realized that college was really not in the future for me to play baseball again. At least I didn't think it was. Uh, a lot of physical therapy to go through that, like years of physical therapy to get over that. Yours was your vision, and for me, it was an identity crisis. It seems like similar to you, and it's kind of like this fork in the road of realizing that the path I thought I was going to go down, that was absolutely certain to be the best path for me, you realize that it wasn't the best path for you. How did that season of life shape the person that you are? Because that mindset is something that's so difficult for people to have. I guess that faith, even.
Yeah, well, the way I think about it now, it's my I was so distraught over losing my career. Um, I wasn't suicidal, but it was just really, I've got no hope, no
Yeah.
life. I'm nobody. I'm worthless. On and on. That was how I mean, I just was like, I've lost everything. Um, and so the way that I think about it now is everyone listening or watching, say you take your top 10 goals, the things that you want in life, and you have a picture of what those things should be. And then you have your top 10 worst things that you think would be the worst. Um, for most people, those two potentially could be flipped, where the 10 things you think are the best for you are the 10 worst, and the 10 worst are the best. And so, if that's true, that that's possible, and I believe it is, well, then what?
Mhm.
Do we just not pursue anything? Obviously, no. What we do is we pursue our purpose and personal growth, and we pursue wisdom and walking in love, not fear, and courage.
Yeah, that's a difficult one. I've had a couple people on the podcast that have been coaches for Michael Jordan and the Seahawks and everything in between, and that identity aspect of this is who I am, especially for someone that's in sports or even a coach that's in sports as well, is so difficult to overcome. Finding that purpose outside of what they with what all they the only thing that they know is so difficult, especially leaving a career or something like that. How do you help people find that?
Well, I can tell you one thing that we do is we work with Youth with a Mission, Homes of Hope. We build a house for a family in Mexico twice a year. So that's a very clear, easy way. Most everyone that comes on these retreats says it's life changing because they're getting the Inner Excellence retreat and the Homes of Hope house build. We're building a house start to finish in 2 days. And at the end of the second day or third day, we're handing them the keys to their new home and new life. But it's really just as powerful for the people that build it to understand that you need the poor more than they need you.
Mm, yeah, that goes to a question that I love asking authors. I find that the book that people get the most from is not the one that they read, but it's the one they write. You've written two, and one has done immeasurably well, and I'm sure the second one, once it gets its time, it'll do the same. What has writing the books taught you about yourself?
Well, I mean, I learned so much in writing the book. I mean, I think it's true that if you want to learn about something, write a book about it because it
Mhm.
takes a lot of research. Um, I'm not sure um, how to articulate what I've learned about myself through writing the book, but I can tell you that writing Inner Excellence, 5 years of full time writing and research, and writing The Best Possible Life, which was 2 years, um, that I've learned that I've been a really self centered person.
Mm,
And I mean, it's the biggest challenge that we all face in performance and in life. It leads to fear. And the more I learn, the more self centered I see I've been. And so, that's kind of eye opening.
yeah, and with athletes too, there's so many. I'm a big Steelers fan. Give you an example. We just got rid of George Pickens, unfortunately, because I think he's an amazing player, but he is very self-centered and makes a very bad locker room, I would say. And I find a lot of athletes are that way too, where they have to be self-centered because that's what allows them to have that delusional optimism to get to that position. How do you battle that? Is like one's self-centeredness, the other one's confidence? What's the difference?
Yeah, good question. So kids grow up and they're unsure, like, how should I be? And not just kids, like pro athletes as well. Um, how should I be? Should I be cocky? Should I tell people how good I am? Because I know I need to be confident, and everyone tells me you got to believe in yourself. And so a lot of times does that mean I need to tell people how good I am? I think for most people, telling people how good you are is really trying to talk yourself into it. And it can really create self-consciousness and put pressure on yourself. Um, but I think another thing you can look at is pro athletes that have been like NBA All Stars or superstars that have been very self-centered in the way most people think about it. Like it's all about me.
Hmm.
Um, and so with inner excellence, I think of self-centeredness a bit different because we can be overinflated and underinflated. I think of humility as an accurate view of self, and self-centered is a view that comes from fear. It's a natural view that gets enhanced by fear, self-centeredness. And so, what I do with pro athletes, like, say you think, say George Pickens called me and said, "Hey, I want to work with you." Um, I'm not going to tell someone that they have to love their opponent, or that you can't be cocky or any of that. What we're going to do is we're going to work on getting clear on how he wants to feel in his life and how he wants to live, the person he wants to become, and what it's going to take to be his best every day, which really means to be fully present, fully engaged in the moment, heart, mind, and body every single day. What does it take to do that? And I found for a lot of people, loving your opponent is probably going to be the best way to be fully engaged, but it would be hard for a lot of people to consider that. But it's not like hugging everybody all the time, or hugging your opponent necessarily. It's saying, look, I want to bring my A game, and I hope you bring your A game, and because I want to make you better. And I mean, love is fearless, and it's the most powerful force in the universe. Like, what do people? You can think about what's most powerful by what will people sacrifice the most for?
Hmm.
It's for love.
Yeah, yeah, so true. There's a quote I've been living by for the past few years, and it sounds in alignment with what you're saying here. I'm curious if it does. Is um, all that matters is how you feel about yourself when you're by yourself. That quote is stuck with me for a while because it's kind of like that the game of inner excellence in a way, because a lot of the time we're defined by our external achievements in sports. For example, like baseball, you're great if you hit 300, but if you hit less than 300, I mean, you're not doing enough, you're not enough, and then we start identifying with that. Is that kind of the loving your enemy, but also kind of loving yourself more
So,
so?
okay, so let's think about this for a second, because that's a very powerful thing you said. All that matters is what I think about myself when I'm alone with myself, right? And so that's a very powerful idea. In other words, the ego is, as I define, is a mind that's always comparing, always threatened, never satisfied. And
Mhm.
so that kind of pushes the ego to the side a bit, right? That idea. I think what's one level above that is um, not what I think about myself, but what does the creator of the universe think about me? If there is a creator of the universe, which I believe there is, if there is, what does he think about me? Um, it's like, kind of reminds me of the idea that this mantra that I tell myself a lot. Um, like, for example, if I don't want to get out of bed, it's like, Jim, you don't live by feelings, you live by purpose. And I'm not going to base my day and what I do by how I feel. I mean, I'm human, so that's happened to me a lot. I have based my actions on how I felt a lot. But my mantra is that I don't do that. And so um, I think it's a similar idea of I'm not so concerned um, how I feel about myself, because I don't want to. I just always think of the mantra "selfless is fearless." I don't want
Mm,
to think about myself. And I'm not so concerned what I think about myself as I'm concerned about what I think about the creator of the universe, what he thinks about me, and how I get to know what he's up to.
mm. That's a good perspective. Yeah, I guess that's the language I use for it, but it's kind of in a line with keeping the promises that you make to yourself. Like if I'm doing what I said I would do, I'm feeling pretty good about me, and it doesn't matter. It's more like input versus output. It's not so much of like what are the results that I'm getting, but it's how am I showing up for myself? Who am I being?
But so that's powerful, and so I think what you're getting at is also a really powerful concept for people to understand is something beyond confidence.
Mm,
And so when you do hard things and you keep your word to yourself, or either one, keep your word to yourself, or you do something hard, or both, it's very empowering, and you gain confidence
mhm.
when you do hard things, or um, just do something that's a little harder than you've done before, or you didn't want to do. Stick your toe in the water if you're afraid. You gain some confidence. But what's confidence is great, but what's even more powerful is to get connected to the flow of the universe. There's a certain flow. Um, the universe has is made of energy, and it's a certain energy that I believe is held together by love, this fearlessness. So I call it love. Um, and for much of my life, I've pushed against it, like trying to push a square peg into a round hole. And now I really try and work hard on if something isn't working. I'm like, wait, am I doing that again? Pushing a square peg into a round hole? It's like, wait, let's not force it.
Mhm.
Let's not force that person. Like that person didn't do what said they're going to do, or I thought they should have done this and they didn't. Wait a second. That may be the creator of the universe orchestrating it because he's got something better for me to do. Let's not try and force it. Whereas in the past, when I was younger, I would try and force things because I think, oh, it should be this way. Come on, and then I would get frustrated.
Yeah. Yeah, that trust is huge, and it's difficult too. It's kind of one of the reasons that for me, when people ask me, "Where do you think you're going to be in 5, 10 years? Where do you want to be in 5, 10 years?" I'm like, dude, personally, I could not tell you where I'm going to be in a month from now. Physically, mentally, personally, professionally, anything, I couldn't tell you because I genuinely don't know. Like, I was in Peru a few weeks ago, and I decided I want to go to Chile the night before, and then I end up in Chile the next week, and it's like
That's amazing.
I can't predict
Sounds
that,
like my
right?
life.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but that's the kind of life that I've chosen to live, and I've been open to allowing myself to live. But I think we want structure, we want stability, but I think for me it's been more so how can I create that within myself rather than looking for that in my environment? Because then if I have it within myself, it doesn't matter what's going on in an environment. I don't speak Spanish. I wish I did speak Spanish. I'm working on speaking Spanish, but I'm in a country where I'm surrounded by a bunch of people that speak Spanish, and I'm in an uncertain environment, but I feel more certain than I ever have. Right. So how can you create that certainty within yourself? I think this goes to sports as well. When you were in the minors, I think even it was difficult for you when you went up to bat, for example, you weren't thinking about, oh, I want to hit a home run here. It's like, oh, I don't want to strike out. And I think that difference, I was also that way as well, where it was just way too much in my head and not enough in the actual experience. How do you help people create that certainty within themselves so they don't fall down that hole that you did?
Yeah. Yeah. I think the good question is, how do I help people become fully engaged in the moment, heart, mind, and
Yes.
body, unattached to the results of what they're trying to do? And so it starts by helping them feel it at first. The very first things I want them to feel it. What's it like to be fully engaged in the moment, unattached to what they're trying to do? Because I think most people would quickly recognize that's how I perform my best. I'm not thinking about the score. I'm not thinking about the outcome. I'm just in the moment. And so we go right to one of their best moments in their lives. Okay, when I ask them how they want to feel, and then so like how would you say that you want to feel, James, in your life in general? Like what? How would you describe it? What's a couple words?
Embodied, empowered, excited,
Okay, embody, and did you say one more?
empowered and excited.
Embodied, empowered, excited. Okay, and can you tell me what's the first memory that comes to mind when you felt anything like that? Embodied, empowered, excited.
The first one that I can think of at this exact moment was I did a Spartan race. not too long ago, and I'm thinking about that because I have one coming up in a few months that I'm excited for, kind of thing. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. And so when you think about the Spartan race, is there a moment that reminds you of that day that was the most exciting?
I guess the anticipation of it, like, right, we're at the starting line and we're about to get started, and I'm just like ready to cruise through it.
Okay, so that at the starting line, um, like, were you? What was the feeling like? How would you describe it?
Just present, I think.
And
Present.
so there was no concern that what are people thinking about me, or what if I stumble, or what if I'm going to get judged, or I hope I don't fail. You weren't thinking about that.
Not even a little bit. No.
Okay, and so that's an example of if you and I were working together, or you were working on inner excellence. I would say, okay, James, we're going to work on getting that feeling in your life more often. Would you like that to have that every day, or more often?
Yeah, of course.
And then we would start to develop. I would help you learn ways of thinking through inner excellence, and expanding what you believe is possible, and understanding how energy works, how fear works, how your subconscious mind works, what your heart deeply wants, and then to get that more often. And so that's kind of how I take people, like you're talking about the Steelers player, how I get people to go from where they're at to having more inner excellence.
Yeah, yeah, I love it so much. I think we don't use the mental tools that we have nearly enough. I found most of mine, and I would assume the same for you, after your career of the thing that you thought you wanted to do. And then when you realize that, it's like a real awareness of like, oh, that really wasn't meant for me. Because I think back now, baseball was my entire life growing up. I genuinely, when people would ask me, "What are you going to college for?" I would say baseball. I have no idea. I have nothing else in mind. And looking back now, I don't think I would even enjoy baseball. I love to play, with friends or whatever it may be, but I don't think I would enjoy that as a career. And so it is really cool to see those tools being used in such a better way. When you think of the people that you're working with, what do you feel is something that is overlooked, like a superpower, a skill that a commonality that a lot of them have?
The best people that I've ever worked with um, are courageous.
What does courage mean? What does that mean to you? What's the difference between someone that's the best that you've ever worked with, a courageous person versus, just another athlete?
Um, to be courageous means you're willing to fail. It means you're willing to look foolish. You're willing to make mistakes. You just want to get better.
Mhm.
Um, you're willing to have feelings that are scary.
Mhm. You interviewed nearly 40 baseball managers, GMs, coaches, all that kind of stuff. From that experience, like, what was the commonality between them? What was the biggest learning that you learned from that?
So I've actually written four books. The first one was Dugout Wisdom: 10 Principles of Championship Teams, where I did interviewed all those major league managers. It was based on my master's paper. And then Inner Excellence Revised Edition, which was a
Yes.
separate book, and then Best Possible Life. So when I interviewed all those major league managers and general managers, it was just the most amazing experience. I remember I was going to fly to Florida, and I had this coach, and I was a graduate student, no money, and I was like, do I fly to Florida? I've only got two, and I was interviewing all these managers so I can get a job coaching in pro baseball.
Hmm.
The plan was get to know the people that can hire you by interviewing the managers and GMs on how to build a championship team. And then when you graduate, go looking for a job from those same people. So that's what I did. I actually ended up getting a job with the Texas Rangers 2 weeks after graduation. And I didn't even interview anyone from their team, but they heard what I was doing. But during my interview process, I remember interviewing the manager for the Blue Jays. I mean, the GM for the Orioles, rather. I think he was with the Blue Jays as well. Dave Dombrowski. He's like a legend, and as a GM, he's been around for decades. Very, very successful. And then Davey Johnson was a Hall of Fame manager. I think at the time he just won the American League Manager of the Year award for the Orioles, and the highest winning percentage of any manager in the big leagues. And he just got fired because the owner didn't get along with him or something. And I'm talking to the GM, and the very last question of every interview was the most important to me. I was like, "Do you have anyone else you think I should talk to beside, after this?" And he said, "What about Davy Johnson?" And so he actually puts him on speakerphone and calls him right there with me next to him. And I just was so shocked at how little confidence that he had.
Mm.
And that's one of the biggest things that I learned from interviewing the managers and superstars that are some of the best in the world. That they're just like us. They have the same fears. They want to be accepted, and they don't want to look foolish. And they're just the same.
So true. I mean, I've done nearly 300 episodes of this podcast, and I've spoken with lead founders of billion-dollar companies, like everything in between that you can think of, and I find that as well. I'm curious because we started this conversation around like how your life shifted a lot when everything happened with AJ Brown and like the book went crazy. I want to dive even further back from that of 5 years in the desert, 90K in debt. You don't really know what you do with your life, kind of thing. How was that experience? Like, there has to be such a massive shift from that experience to just a couple months that is everything has happened. What was that experience like for you?
Oh wow, yeah, crazy. So that was 2009. The book comes out in around the world, McGraw Hill. But I went to the desert in 2000. I think it was the end of 2003.
3. Hmm.
And so I come out of the desert, and so I go there with just getting rid of over half my possessions, giving them away, including my television set. This is before streaming, because I didn't want to waste my time, be lonely, and waste my time. And like I think it was my second New Year's there. I'm in an empty house, and I hear a noise, and I go outside and I see fireworks, and that's when I first found out it was New Year's Eve. But so yeah, it was very lonely, I come out of the desert, and I'm $90,000 in debt. The books and bookstores around the world, but I have a near mental breakdown because, like we talked about, we're created for relationships, and um, I had really isolated myself for 5 years. And I'm thinking, I'm in Denver, Colorado, speaking to some schools, and I was thinking, you're $90,000 in debt. You've got no money to hire someone to market the book. You don't know how to do marketing, and you don't like promoting yourself. This is not a good marketing plan. And if no one hears about the book, no one will buy the book. And if no one buys the book, Barnes and Noble will pull it off their shelves, and this could happen in a matter of weeks, and everyone will know you're a total failure. Like, this was a complete failure. And I just couldn't see how that wasn't going to happen. And this is what happens when you isolate yourself. You get negative thoughts, and there's no one there to tell you the truth about who you are and what's possible. And my mind started to spin out of control. And I had my knees were shaking, like I was about to collapse, like carted away in a white jacket or something. I don't know what would have happened. But obviously, God was behind the scenes working everything, because um, sometimes you have to get to the end of your rope to surrender to a power greater than yourself, and that's what God knew was going to need to happen to me. And so I'm at the end of my rope and near mental breakdown, and I call my friend and say, "Hey, what do I do?" And he said, "Find a homeless person and help him." And I look around the corner, and there's a homeless harpist, this guy playing a harp, and um, I look at my wallet, and I had $100, and so I must have taken out a cash advance, because most of my credit cards were maxed out, but I usually don't have any money. Didn't have any money, and then so I give him $100, and I go back to where I was staying to run on the treadmill. I come back a couple hours later, and that same harpist walks in, stops into the Starbucks where I was sitting, just staring off into space, and he says, "Are you the guy that gave me that money?" And I said, "Yeah." And he leaves and comes back with a box of chocolates and a card and a bracelet that he made. He gave all three to me. When I was writing the book, I asked this girl from my church to make sure it lined up with the Bible. And she said, "Have you ever heard of the word Zoe?" And after she read it, she said, "I read Inner Excellence. Have you ever heard of the word Zoe?" I said, "No." And she said, "It means fullness of life. I think that's what your book is about." And I said, "Yes, my whole life I'm obsessed about being a superstar and being successful and having everyone love me. But what I've always really wanted was to feel fully alive." So I started to orient my book around the pursuit of fullness of life and let everything else be added to you. I walk back into that. I'm in the Starbucks, and the homeless guy walks back in, hands me all three, and I look at the card, and it says, "Thank you so much for caring for me. Love, Zoe."
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
guy's name was Zoe, and that was a day that I'll never forget the rest of my life. That was the beginning of my life really transforming.
Yeah. Oh man, I've heard that story, and it's still incredible. Still incredible. You caught yourself on when you said that you don't have money, and then you said you caught yourself and you said didn't, as you said it. I'm someone that is aggressively serious about the language that I use. To everyone that's surrounded by me, I'm always making sure that I'm conscious of the words that I use, making sure that it's past tense if I want it to be in the past, if it's
Nice,
future forward, like all of that kind of stuff. How is that? How
powerful.
big has that been for you? And I could assume that you use that with every single person you work with.
Oh yeah, it's like the first day we meet, we're going to talk about that,
Yeah,
and we don't talk about it because I bring it up. We talk about it because when
it
people
happened.
come to me, usually they want to perform better, right? And so, what
Yeah.
are they going to say? I'm struggling with this, or I'm struggling. I was like, tell me about your life. Oh, this is happening and that's happening. I'm like, all right,
Mm-hmm.
let's have a little chat here. And I say, look, it's not true. You're not struggling with your putting, or you're not struggling with this or that. That's all past tense. If you want to tell me the truth, then you would say, in the past, I struggled with this. It doesn't matter if it's happened your whole life. You know, it's all past. Everything up until this moment is past. And so say it truthfully as past tense, because beliefs are what's running your life, and beliefs come from everything you think, feel, and say. And so, just as you've understood, we want to be very careful about what we say and make sure that what we say is empowering
Yeah.
and truthful.
Yeah, absolutely. And even so, it doesn't necessarily have to be true at the beginning. This is something that I've had a couple conversations around with authors as well. Useful, Not True is a book from Derek Sivers I had on the podcast probably 2 years ago now. Of just like if you take on a belief that serves you, and it may not be true in the beginning, but you take on that belief and you act in accordance to that belief being true, eventually it's going to become true. But it's almost just taking on something that serves you versus what doesn't. And I think a lot of people just walk through life just choosing a narrative that doesn't serve them, and they're not conscious of it. That's why it becomes the first thing.
Yeah, very, very well said. So there's a term called realist. Have you heard of this phrase? I'm a realist.
Hmm.
I think when people say I'm a realist, I think they really mean I'm a pessimist.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so I think of myself as a realist as well.
Hmm.
And I think if I were to see all of reality, I wouldn't be able to face it because there'd be too much beauty.
One thing when it comes to beliefs, to identity, like we talked about the 90K in debt, that whole like experience that was insane, and then everything that happened with AJ Brown and like the book going from like an insane amount of sales. Like people don't do that over their lifetime for you to do what you've done like in a week kind of thing. And I know it's still going because it's still high up there. What was
I
that?
don't think of that something that I did. It's
Yeah.
something that God did.
Right, right. And that's where the question is coming from more so, is like that was out of your control, right? And most things that happen that are extraordinary are out of your control to some extent. What was that experience like? Did you have an identity crisis there as well? Like, I'm not deserving of this, or like what came up for you then?
Well, yeah, that's a good question because um, self-centeredness is the biggest challenge we face in performance and in life, and that's overinflated or underinflated.
Hmm.
And um, that the week of January 12th, even though I had money in savings and some money in investments, my checking account actually went into the negative that week. And I tried to get money to give some money to a person on the street that asked me for money, and I didn't have any money in my wallet, so I went to the bank to go get him some money, and the ATM said insufficient funds twice. And so um, that week, January 12th, Sunday, was the Packers Eagles game. And then I think we sold 42,000 books on Tuesday, on the 14th, and then 42,000 on Wednesday, 15th. And so it was starting to get a little overwhelming. Like, what do I do? Like, I got to make sure that I don't screw this up, whatever a natural human response was. And then it was like on day three, and it was like 3 a.m. My heart was racing, just adrenaline. And then it was like God had a little talk with me. It's like, Jim, look, it doesn't matter if you sell 1,000 books, 100,000, or a million. If your bank account says negative 200 or whatever it said on that Tuesday, or says 200 million. That doesn't change anything. Your purpose stays the same. How you live stays the same. You're going to share your purpose around the world, and your lifestyle will be a little different. Now you're going to go to more cities and maybe give more talks and things like that. But that was a big thing. It was like, Jim, stop stressing out. You didn't do this. So one, I did it and I'm doing it. You didn't do it. You're not doing it. And so don't think that you're responsible and have to keep anything up because you're not the one doing it. So that was huge for me. And I'm glad he told me that after a couple of days, because if I would have been on my own for weeks and trying, oh my gosh, what do I do? Oh my gosh, that would have been really stressful.
Oh, I could imagine. Yeah, it took the pressure off because you realize that it's not you. And I
Yeah.
think that over overly big ego, it just gets in the way for a lot of people because they believe it's all them, and I don't think that's really true. From your experiences, you were
Also, it's not, yeah, it's not, because it's not true. Having that inaccurate view of self is really creates a lot of issues: fear, anxiety, um, problems, relationships, etc.
yeah, absolutely. It goes back to like when you're. I think that's why coaching is so powerful too, right? Like for an athlete, an entrepreneur, a business owner, anyone, personal, just in general, having someone outside of you to help you realize, hey, what you're telling yourself about yourself probably isn't true, and you're always the worst person for yourself. So you just need someone else to see something in you that you don't see in yourself, and to help call you and pull you forward into the person that they can see you as. It is the most powerful thing ever. And I think athletes too. I spoke with Michael Gervais, who was one of the sports psychologists for the Seahawks,
Mm-hmm.
and something that he brought up when we were speaking was when he works with athletes, he doesn't help them uh, become a better version of themselves. Let's say he helps them get back to where they used to be, because it's like what you have to recognize, at least from his perspective, is it's not like he has the skill sets that that person has. More so, he's helping them realize that they still have those skill sets and getting back to that place that they want to get to. And I think just realizing that almost everything is internal, like the inner excellence, like you speak about, is so powerful. But it's very difficult in a world driven by metrics, and especially in the sports industry as well.
He's got a great podcast, Finding Mastery.
Absolutely, absolutely. Talking about sports, you were minor leagues for the Cubs, hitting coach for a South African Olympic team. You've done a bunch of different things throughout your life, and a bunch of different avenues of identities that you took on, and all that different kind of stuff. What phase of life taught you the most about yourself?
South Africa was huge because I faced some poverty that I'd never seen before.
Mm,
Um, the desert was huge because I had to face solitude and come face to face with my thoughts and my weaknesses and my fears, like I hadn't before. Um, the week of January 12th was huge because I had to think, now, what am I going to do with this abundance, this life, um, this responsibility? What am I going to do with it? And understanding that it can be a very dangerous, slippery slope when you're given a lot of responsibility or given power or anything like that. If you can influence people, then it's a huge responsibility. It can be scary. Um, and so, that was a big week to realize, okay, I'm just going to live my purpose and make sure that I dive into my routines and the um, the disciplines that are so important.
yeah. Um, this leads. I have two more questions for you, and Uh, the first one is when you left the desert, a lot of people think that in life you have to take on things to become a better version of yourself. You have to add a habit, you have to add a belief, you have to add all these different things. What did you let go of?
I think the number one thing that people be would benefit by letting go of their need to be right. It's the ego. When I think of self mastery, it's mastering the ego. Um, and I always think of these three things of being unembarrassable, unoffendable, and unirritatable. And um, also letting go of my lesser loves. We all have a hierarchy of loves. We're led around by love, and whatever we love most, that's what's running our life. And I think learning to let go of lower level loves was so huge.
Powerful. So powerful. One last question I ask every guest encapsulates what I want to do with this podcast. You brought up how beliefs are so powerful earlier, and it really encapsulates what I want to do is, what belief are you currently unlearning?
I think most people, including myself, live their life based on their past. This is who I am. This is what I've done. Therefore, this is what's possible. And so I think um, I've been letting go of the belief that um, what's possible in my life. I mean, this is also inner excellence. Is that what's possible in my life is based on what I've done and who I've been. But just God is showing me that more, and I'm learning that more. That um, anything is possible when you believe. I think letting go of the limiting beliefs that I've had about who I am and what's possible in my life, and saying, look, at learning to continually, if anything was possible, what would I do today? Who would I be?
Hmm. So powerful, man. Your work is incredible. There's a reason that it happened the way that it did, and I'm really grateful to have the time to speak with you. Of course, the book and all your links will be in the show notes. But is there anywhere you'd like to direct people?
Um, well, I have a newsletter, innerexcellence.com. You can find out workshops, retreats, and things that I share with my clients. We're going to be moving to Substack here soon. I'll announce that as well. And then, of course, Instagram, Inner Excellence Jim Murphy, and the other social media. You can find me there.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, thanks, James. That was amazing.